Hi, and welcome back to State of the Nation, New Zealand. Let's talk about the buyback database breach that has potentially exposed the names, addresses, and firearms details of tens of thousands of Kiwis. As part of the government's buyback scheme, owners of newly prohibited items are required to go online and fill out their personal details, their bank account number, and the firearms or parts that they have that are to be handed into police. It goes without saying that this is very sensitive data, and failing to secure it is a very serious issue. Imagine gangs with a shopping list of addresses along with the firearms at each address. If this prospect does not scare you, it should. In press conferences today, the Minister and Deputy Commissioner of Police both suggested the breach was isolated. There was a single firearms dealer reported to have more access to the system than expected. Apparently, this was an inadvertent mistake due to an update made by the software provider recently. So, the official story is that one guy had access, and it's not even the fault of police. What's interesting, though, is that the press release by the Council of Licensed Firearms Owners reports having been advised of the breach by a number of people independently. One person reported that upon accessing the portal for his own notifications, he found he had access to 280,000 records. That suggests it's not a single dealer as claimed, and it's more likely a widespread issue. To be clear though, this isn't a hack where bad actors compromised the system's security. It sounds like maybe they made a bad change to how the system handles security, and negligence somewhere along the line allowed that change to be published on the live server. And, well, maybe that made all the records available to all users. It's not a hack, it's a mistake, but it is a big one. So, who is at fault? Well, in an IT project like this, where you have an external vendor, in this case, it's a big company called SAP. It's that vendor's job to first build the system as described by the customer, and then make any changes that are asked for down the line. Software is complex, so there's always changes and maintenance that need to happen to keep things running smoothly, and there's usually a very strict process for that to happen because, as we've seen, it's possible to really screw things up. Typically, you'll start with a request from the owner, in this case that's the police, for something to be changed in the system. Then the vendor makes the change, tests it, and then they pass it back to police, who will check the change is what they asked for, and police can then sign it off and the change can go live. It seems that either someone in the police accepted and signed off on this change without actually doing their job properly, or police are allowing the software vendor to make changes without authorization, which is something the Deputy Commissioner actually mentioned in the press conference.
Error back to an update made by our vendor last week. The update was not authorised by police.
Thing is though, as the owners of the system, police are ultimately responsible either way. Either they approved the changes, or the project management was lax enough to allow unauthorised changes to be published. So what we've seen here is a lot of blame directed at SAP. To be fair, if the breach is a security vulnerability in SAP's underlying software, then yes, it would be right to blame the vendor. But that doesn't seem to be the case here, because the system has been running for months, and then suddenly something changed, and this serious security issue appeared. It's pretty clear that police failed in their responsibility as owners of the buyback IT system. And there have been today calls for the resignations of those who are responsible. And all of this has happened while the government is working through new legislation that, among other things, will require a national firearms register. We've heard recently that improvements in technology will somehow allow the proposed register to succeed. But in light of this breach, the latest in a long line of government breaches, that claim seems increasingly like a pipe dream. The Deputy Commissioner suggested the longer time frame to implement such a register would make it a success, but it's a larger scale too. And to be honest, the kind of management failure we've seen here would probably be amplified on a larger scale project. So where to from here? Police have indicated the buyback will still only run until December 20th as scheduled. Though without a working database, that seems like a really big ask. And if they do bring the database back online, you have to wonder, how many firearms owners will have the confidence to enter their sensitive information into it now? The buyback was relying on a late rush to bolster the numbers as we approached December 20th, to beat the 15% compliance figure that the hand-in rates were suggesting. But it's hard now to imagine such a surge given the severity of this blunder.